Rain drizzled lightly over the fresh graves as Eleanor Mitchell stood motionless, gripping the folded umbrella in her hands. The damp earth beneath her feet smelled rich, the scent mixing with the lingering perfume of funeral flowers. The cemetery was quiet except for the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. She should have been crying, should have been feeling the deep grief that came with losing both parents in less than a year. But all she felt was exhaustion. Exhaustion from 3 years of caregiving, from sacrificing her career, her savings, her home equity, everything. To keep them comfortable in their final years, she had been the devoted daughter, the one who gave up everything. And now, as she stood by their graves, she realized she had nothing left. A voice behind her pulled her from her thoughts. "Ms. Mitchell!" She turned to see Paul Harris, her parents' longtime attorney. His usual composed expression was troubled. "We need to discuss your parents' estate." Finally, some good news. For years, her father had reassured her that she wouldn't have to worry about finances. "We've arranged everything," he had promised. The house, their modest savings, it would all be left to her. She nodded, forcing a tired smile. "Let's go to your office." 15 years earlier. The smell of fresh coffee lingered in Eleanor's high-rise office as she scanned a legal document on her desk. The Boston skyline stretched before her, golden from the morning sun. She was at the peak of her career, a well-respected paralegal, on track to becoming a legal consultant. Her phone rang. It was her mother. "Ellie, it's your father," she whispered, voice trembling. "He's had a stroke." The word sent a jolt through her spine. Within hours, Eleanor was at the hospital, where her mother clutched her hands, tearful and frail. "I can't do this alone," she sobbed. Eleanor knew what was coming. Her parents had no one else. Her brother, Robert, had moved to California years ago and barely called. Her only cousin, Vincent, wasn't interested in family obligations. "You can take time off," her boss suggested, but Eleanor knew better. She couldn't juggle a high-pressure career while managing her father's recovery and her mother's growing memory lapses. She made the hardest decision of her life. She quit her job, packed up her apartment, and moved back home. At the time, it felt like the right thing to do. Her father had been so grateful. "This house will be yours, Ellie," he'd promised. "You're doing what no one else would." But promises didn't pay the bills, and the bills started piling up. Medical, treatments, round-the-clock care, home modifications. She drained her savings, refinanced the house, maxed out credit cards, and then came Richard Simmons. 3 years ago. The first time Eleanor met Richard, he was standing on their front porch, smiling warmly as her mother let him inside. "I live just down the road," he explained. "I used to be a nurse before I retired. Thought I could help out." At first, Eleanor had been relieved. She was exhausted from sleepless nights, from managing medications, from the financial stress that never seemed to let up. Richard was kind, helpful. He sat with her father for hours, read books to her mother. Slowly, things changed. Her parents began asking for Richard more than her. If she suggested something, her father would say, "Richard thinks we should do it this way." The first time Richard undermined her, it was subtle. "Eleanor, you seem overwhelmed. Maybe you need a break." But soon, it escalated. "Your parents need stability, not someone who resents caregiving," he had said one night after she broke down from exhaustion. The comment stung. Was that how she seemed? Ungrateful? She brushed it off, until her father called a lawyer without telling her. Present day, Eleanor sat across from Paul Harris in his office, heart pounding as he read from the will. The house, all remaining savings, and financial assets are left to Richard Simmons. A buzzing filled her ears. She blinked. I don't understand. Paul sighed, folding his hands. Your father changed his will 3 months before his passing. He said Richard had become like family. Her stomach twisted. But I took care of them. For years. I refinanced my home for their medical bills. Paul hesitated. I'm truly sorry, but legally, those debts are yours. Her breath caught in her throat. The house she grew up in? Gone. Their savings? Gone. And all she had left was over $300,000 in medical debt. Eleanor gripped the edges of the chair, her knuckles turning white. He promised me, she whispered. He said they had everything arranged, Paul sighed, sliding a folder toward her. This is all I have. I wish I could say there was something more. Hands shaking, she reached for the folder. Inside were the final financial statements, receipts, and copies of the will. Then she saw it, a yellowed envelope, tucked behind, a stack of documents. Her father's handwriting scrawled across it. Insurance. Important. She froze. Paul noticed her reaction. What is it? With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. Inside was an old life insurance policy from National Benefit Life. The amount? $1 million. And next to the beneficiary line, her name was written clearly, Eleanor Mitchell. Her heart pounded. She looked up at Paul. Why wasn't this included in the will? Paul frowned. There was no mention of an insurance policy in my records. Are you sure it's still active? Eleanor's hands clenched around the paper. There's only one way to find out. She pulled out her phone and dialed the number on the document. After a few rings, a robotic voice answered. Thank you for calling National Benefit Life. Please enter your policy number. She read it off, holding her breath. The system processed. Then a woman's voice came on the line. Miss Mitchell, I see the policy on file. Relief rushed through her. It was real. But then the woman added, However, this policy was cancelled 2 months before your father passed away. Eleanor's body went cold. That's impossible, she said. Who cancelled it? There was a pause. The request was signed by George Mitchell and witnessed by Richard Simmons. A chill ran down her spine. Richard. Had he known? Had he convinced her father to cancel the policy? Her breath came faster. If the insurance policy had never been cancelled, she wouldn't be drowning in debt. Had she just stumbled onto something much bigger than betrayal? Outside the window, the city buzzed on as if nothing had changed. But for Eleanor, everything had. And for the first time in years, she wasn't just a caregiver or a victim. She was a woman with nothing to lose. And Richard Simmons was about to learn exactly what that meant. What do you think really happened to Eleanor's insurance policy? Did Richard manipulate her father? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to follow Eleanor's journey to uncover the truth. The steady hum of Eleanor's car engine was the only sound as she gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. The words from the insurance company echoed in her mind. This policy was cancelled 2 months before your father passed away, witnessed by Richard Simmons. She swallowed the lump in her throat, her mind racing with questions. Had her father really agreed to cancel the policy? Or had Richard done something far worse? Her stomach twisted. She needed answers. The financial. Ruin Eleanor sat at her small dining table, now cluttered with stacks of unpaid medical bills. The weight of it all pressed against her chest, $312,000. That was the number staring back at her. She had given up her financial security for her parents, trusting that they had a plan in place for her future. But now, all she had left was debt. She picked up her phone and dialed the number for National Benefit Life again. A polite voice answered. "Ms. Mitchell, as we mentioned, your father cancelled the policy." She pressed her fingers against her temple. "I need a copy of the cancellation form." A pause. "That would require a legal request," the representative said carefully. Eleanor exhaled. "Fine. I'll get a lawyer." She hung up, heart pounding. If Richard had manipulated her father into canceling the policy, she would prove it. And then she was going to make him pay. The confrontation. The house she had once called home no longer belonged to her. But as she stood outside, staring at the familiar porch, rage simmered beneath her grief. Richard lived here now, the same man who had wormed his way into her parents' trust, convinced them to rewrite their will, and left her with nothing. She rang the doorbell, her finger pressing harder than necessary. Footsteps, then the door swung open. Richard stood there, smiling. "Eleanor," he greeted smoothly. "I wasn't expecting you." She forced a tight smile. "We need to talk." He stepped aside, gesturing for her to enter. "Of course. Would you like some tea?" The audacity of his hospitality made her want to scream. She walked past him, scanning the house. Her house. Everything looked the same, yet it felt foreign. Richard sat down on the couch, crossing one leg over the other, like he was a guest, not an intruder. "What can I do for you?" he asked, voice oozing with false sincerity. Eleanor set the insurance policy on the table. "Explain this." He glanced at it, his expression unreadable. "I'm not sure what you mean." She leaned in. "Why did my father cancel this policy? And why were you the witness?" Richard let out a small, knowing chuckle. "Eleanor, your father made his own choices. You were always so focused on control. But he was an independent man." Her nails dug into her palms. "He was sick." Richard tilted his head. "That doesn't mean he wasn't capable of making decisions." She took a deep breath, steadying herself. "You manipulated him." His smile didn't waver. "I helped him," he corrected, her hands clenched into fists. "You stole everything," she hissed. Richard sighed, standing up. "I don't have to justify anything to you, Eleanor." He started toward the door, opening it. "I think we're done here." She stared at him, heart hammering. He thought he had won. But he had no idea what was coming. A new lead Eleanor sat on her bed, staring at the ceiling. She had no proof. Not yet. But something about Richard's arrogance, his certainty, bothered her. Her father had always assured her that she was financially protected. He had always been meticulous with his plans. So what changed? Her mind drifted to the one person who might have answers. Dr. Patel, her father's doctor. She grabbed her phone and quickly searched for the hospital's number. After a few rings, a nurse picked up. "I need to speak with Dr. Patel," Eleanor said. "It's about my father's condition before he passed." There was a pause. "Dr. Patel retired last month," the nurse informed her. Eleanor's heart sank. "Do you know how I can reach him?" The nurse hesitated. "Let me check." "Oh, he left a note in the system that any past patients' families could contact him at his home office." She jotted down the address, thanked the nurse, and grabbed her coat. If Richard had manipulated her father, Dr. Patel might be the only one who could confirm it. And if he did, then Eleanor wasn't just going to reclaim what was hers. She was going to ruin Richard Simmons, the doctor's warning doctor. Patel's house was a modest brick home, tucked away on a quiet street. Eleanor knocked, nerves twisting in her stomach. After a few moments, the door opened, revealing a kind-faced man in his 60s. "Ms. Mitchell?" he asked, surprised. She nodded. "I need to talk to you about my father." He stepped aside, letting her in. The living room smelled of tea and old books, a comforting contrast to the storm inside Eleanor's chest. They sat, and she wasted no time. "My father changed his will and canceled his life insurance policy before he died," she explained. "I need to know if he was capable of making those decisions." Dr. Patel's expression darkened. He sighed, rubbing his hands together. "I had concerns," he admitted. Eleanor's breath hitched. "Concerns?" He nodded. "Your father's memory was declining in his final months. He had episodes of confusion, forgetting things he had done just days earlier." Eleanor swallowed hard. Would he have been in the right state of mind to cancel an insurance policy? Dr. Patel exhaled sharply. "In my professional opinion, no." Her pulse pounded in her ears. Richard had known. He had taken advantage of her father's decline. Dr. Patel hesitated. "I noticed something else. Richard was always there. He attended every major appointment, made sure your father took his medications, even managed his financial documents." Eleanor's stomach turned. Richard had isolated her father, manipulated him, trapped him. Dr. Patel met her gaze. "Whatever you're looking for, Ms. Mitchell, be careful. People who manipulate the elderly for financial gain don't like being exposed." She clenched her jaw. She didn't care. She had wasted 3 years of her life, sacrificing everything for her parents. She was not going to let Richard steal what was left. Eleanor stood. "Thank you, Dr. Patel." She walked out into the night, a new fire burning inside her. Richard thought he had won. But this game was just beginning. What do you think Richard is hiding? And how far will Eleanor go to uncover the truth? Share your theories in the comments and subscribe for the next shocking twist. The morning sun cast a cold light across Eleanor's cluttered apartment. Coffee sat untouched beside a pile of documents she had stayed up all night reviewing. Her father's medical records, legal documents, and bank statements. Each one a piece of a puzzle she was determined to solve. Richard had manipulated her father. Now she needed proof. Digging deeper. Eleanor stared at the insurance policy cancellation form. The signature on it, her father's, felt wrong. She had seen his handwriting her entire life, from childhood birthday cards to the notes he had scribbled on shopping lists. And this? It was off. Her hands trembled as she grabbed another document. From the pile, a bank statement her father had signed months before his death. She compared the signatures side by side. Her father's real signature was fluid, confident, natural. The one on the insurance cancellation? Shaky, uncertain, a forgery. Her heart pounded. She needed an expert to confirm it. She grabbed her phone and dialed Lisa Chen, the elder law attorney she had met with days earlier. Lisa picked up after 2 rings. "Eleanor, I was about to call you. I've been digging into Richard Simmons." "I need a handwriting analysis," Eleanor interrupted. "The insurance cancellation form. My father's signature doesn't look right." Lisa paused. "That's a smart angle. If we can prove the signature was forged, we can get the policy reinstated." Eleanor exhaled sharply. "Do you know someone who can analyze it?" "I do. Meet me at my office in an hour." Eleanor grabbed the documents and her car keys. If Richard had forged that signature, she was going to bury him with it. The handwriting expert Lisa's office was a sleek, professional space with law books lining the walls. But Eleanor barely noticed. Her focus was on the man sitting across from her, a forensic document examiner named Dr. Alan Pierce. He adjusted his glasses as he examined both signatures under a magnifying glass. Minutes stretched into eternity as Eleanor watched him work. Finally, he looked up. "This is highly suspicious." Eleanor's pulse spiked. "You mean it's forged?" Dr. Pierce nodded slowly. "The tremors in the lines suggest someone was attempting to imitate the signature, not naturally writing it. Your father's original signature has a fluidity that's missing from this one." Lisa leaned forward. "Could this hold up in court?" Dr. Pierce's lips pressed into a firm line. "If this were a criminal case? Absolutely." Eleanor's stomach twisted. Lisa turned to her. "This could be enough to petition the insurance company to reinstate the policy." A flicker of hope sparked in Eleanor's chest. But it wasn't enough. She needed more. She needed Richard to pay. The first crack in Richard's story, Eleanor's next stop was the bank where her father had handled most of his financial affairs. She walked into the office of Mr. Sutton, her father's former account manager, and introduced herself. "I need to see the last transactions made in my father's name before he died," she said. Sutton frowned. "That information is confidential." Eleanor clenched her jaw. "I was his daughter, and I have every reason to believe someone was stealing from him." Sutton hesitated. Then, with a sigh, he tapped on his keyboard and pulled up the records. Eleanor held her breath as he scanned the screen. His eyes widened slightly. "This is unusual," he murmured. He turned the screen toward her. 2 months before her father died, the same month the insurance was cancelled, large withdrawals had been made from his account, amounts totaling nearly $50,000, all withdrawn in cash, and the name on the transaction approvals, Richard Simmons. Eleanor's fingers dug into the arms of the chair. "What did he tell the bank those withdrawals were for?" she asked. Sutton's brow furrowed. "He had a notarized letter from your father giving him permission to handle financial matters. But—" he hesitated. "But what?" Eleanor pressed. Sutton adjusted his glasses. "Your father was already listed as having limited cognitive function in his medical records at that time. If the bank had known that, we never would have approved these transactions." Eleanor's breath hitched. Her father hadn't been in a state to make those decisions. And Richard knew it. He had drained her father's accounts. He had left her with nothing. Her hands trembled. She had enough. Enough to prove fraud. Enough to destroy him. The confrontation at the house, Richard's house, her parents' house, stood in front of her like a monument to betrayal. Eleanor's blood boiled as she walked up to the door and rang the bell. Seconds later, Richard answered, his smug smile still firmly in place. "Back so soon?" he asked smoothly. Eleanor didn't waste time. She pulled out the printed bank records and slammed them against his chest. His smirk faltered. "What's this?" he asked, feigning confusion. Eleanor's voice was cold, steady. "It's proof that you stole from my father." Richard chuckled, shaking his head. "That's absurd." She took a step closer. "The insurance cancellation form," she whispered. "Forged." His jaw tightened. "The cash withdrawals? You took $50,000 from him when he was already mentally incapacitated." Richard's expression hardened. But Eleanor wasn't done. "I spoke to his doctor. He wasn't competent to make financial decisions." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Richard's face. Eleanor smiled. She had him. "You conned my father, and now?" She folded her arms. "I'm taking everything back." Richard's lips curled into a sneer. "You have no idea what you're getting yourself into." Eleanor tilted her head. Actually, I do. She turned on her heel and strode back to her car. She had everything she needed. Tomorrow she was going to war. Cliffhanger ending, Eleanor sat in her car, her breath steadying. Her phone buzzed. A message from Lisa. Meet me at my office first thing. I have something big. Her stomach twisted with anticipation. And then, another text. Unknown number. Stop now, Eleanor. You don't want to push this any further. Her skin prickled. Someone was watching her. She stared out into the dark street. And for the first time since this all began, she realized this wasn't just about money anymore. Someone was willing to do anything to keep the truth buried. And that meant she had to move fast. Eleanor barely slept that night. The weight of everything she had uncovered pressed against her chest, a suffocating mix of anger and urgency. The text message from the unknown number replayed in her mind, each word a warning she refused to heed. She was too close now. Whoever was behind this wanted her to back off, and that only made her more determined. By sunrise, she was already on her way to Lisa's office. The streets were empty, the city still waking up, but her mind was racing. Whatever Lisa had found, it was big. Lisa met her at the door, her expression grim. We have a problem. Eleanor's stomach dropped. What kind of problem? Lisa locked the door behind them and gestured toward her desk, where a folder sat open. Inside were documents, bank statements, and something that made Eleanor's pulse spike, a life insurance claim. Someone already tried to cash out the insurance policy, Lisa said. Eleanor's breath caught. What? Lisa nodded. 2 months after your father's death, someone filed a claim. It was denied because the policy had been officially cancelled. But here's the thing. Look at the signature on the claim form. Eleanor leaned in, her heart pounding. The signature was a near-perfect copy of her father's. But she knew better. This is a forgery, she whispered. Lisa's eyes were sharp. Which means someone knew about the policy and tried to take the payout before you even found out. It existed. Eleanor's hands clenched into fists. Richard! That's my guess, Lisa said. But here's where it gets worse. He didn't file the claim under his name. Eleanor's head snapped up. Then who did? Lisa slid another document toward her. Eleanor's stomach turned as she read the name. William Hayes. The attorney? She breathed. Lisa nodded. Your parents' trusted lawyer. The same one who handled the will. The same one who notarized the insurance cancellation form. The room seemed to tilt. Eleanor gripped the desk for support. The betrayal cut even deeper than she had imagined. This wasn't just Richard preying on her father. This was a conspiracy. Lisa's voice softened. I think Hayes and Richard were working together. They forged the cancellation, waited for your father to pass, and then tried to claim the money before anyone could question it. Eleanor forced herself to take a deep breath. But the claim was denied. Yes, Lisa said, but that doesn't mean they're done trying. If they think you're going to fight this, they might try something else. Eleanor swallowed hard. Then we have to move fast. Lisa leaned back in her chair, thoughtful. We need to file an emergency petition to put the estate under review. If we can prove fraud, we can block any further attempts at claiming assets. Eleanor nodded. Let's do it. Lisa hesitated. There's one more thing. She flipped through the documents, pulling out a grainy photocopy of a check. This is a payment Hayes received a month before your father changed his will. Eleanor stared at the number, her skin crawling. $100,000. Lisa tapped the paper. It came from an offshore account. Not your parents, Someone else's. I don't know whose account it is yet, but I have a suspicion. Eleanor didn't need her to say it. Richard. The walls were closing in on him, and Eleanor intended to make sure he had nowhere left to run. She grabbed the check and stood. I need to talk to someone. Lisa arched a brow. Who? Eleanor's jaw tightened. His ex-wife. Sarah Simmons lived in a modest house in the suburbs, a sharp contrast to the wealth Richard had surrounded himself with. When she answered the door, her expression flickered between curiosity and wariness. I was wondering when you'd come, Sarah said, stepping aside to let Eleanor in. Eleanor didn't waste time. You know what Richard did to my family, Sarah sighed, crossing her arms. I know what he's capable of. Eleanor pulled out the copy of the check. Did you know he was paying off my parents' attorney? Sarah's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't look surprised. That sounds like him. Eleanor studied her closely. How many times has he done this before? Sarah exhaled slowly. At least twice that I know of. The last time I was still married to him. I tried to stop him, but he always found a way. He's a predator, Eleanor. He finds people when they're weak and takes everything. Eleanor's stomach churned. And now he's targeting me. Sarah nodded. But the difference is, you're fighting back. Eleanor clenched her fists. And I'm going to win. Sarah hesitated, then stepped into the next room. When she returned, she was holding a folder. I kept this for years, she said. I didn't know if I'd ever use it, but if you're going to take Richard down, you'll need it. Eleanor took the folder and opened it. Inside were emails, copies of legal documents, bank transfers, and a recording transcript. Her hands trembled as she read the words. Richard, once we get the insurance cancelled, we'll be in the clear. Hayes will take care of the paperwork. Hayes. And you're sure the old man won't fight it? Richard. He won't even know what's happening. We'll just keep upping his meds. A wave of nausea rolled through Eleanor. Her father had been drugged into compliance. She looked up at Sarah, her throat tight. This is enough to destroy him. Sarah's expression was unreadable. Then make sure you do. Eleanor clutched the folder to her chest. Richard had taken everything from her. But he had made one fatal mistake. He had underestimated her. And now, she was coming for him. Eleanor sat in Lisa's office, staring at the evidence Sarah had given her. Each page was another nail in Richard's coffin. The bank transfers, the falsified legal documents, and the recording, the damning proof that Richard and Hayes had manipulated her father while drugging him into compliance. Lisa tapped her pen against the desk. This is enough for a criminal case. Eleanor exhaled slowly. Then let's move forward. Lisa nodded. I'll file the fraud complaint first thing tomorrow. But Eleanor, Richard is dangerous. If he finds out we have this... Eleanor met her gaze, unwavering. Then he'll know exactly how this ends. Lisa leaned back. All right. I'll notify the authorities, but we should expect pushback. Hayes is a high-profile attorney, and Richard's gotten away with this before. Eleanor glanced down at the transcript, her pulse steady. Not this time. That night, Eleanor barely slept. The weight of what she had uncovered sat heavy on her chest. Her father had trusted Richard, had thought he was a friend, and in return, he had been drugged, manipulated, and robbed. Her phone buzzed in the darkness. She hesitated before checking. The screen. Unknown number. She answered. Who is this? A slow chuckle. Eleanor. I'm disappointed in you. Her blood ran cold. Richard. His voice was smooth, condescending. digging through old paperwork, turning over stones that should have stayed buried. It's not a good look. Eleanor clenched her jaw. You think you can intimidate me? I think you don't understand what you're up against. A pause. You should drop this before you make things worse for yourself. Eleanor's grip tightened on the phone. I already lost everything, Richard. There's nothing left for you to take. Silence. Then, his tone turned darker. You sure about that? The line went dead. Eleanor sat there, heart pounding, the threat hanging in the air. He was scared, and that meant she was close. By morning, the fraud complaint was filed. Lisa had secured a meeting with the district attorney, and the police were investigating the bank transfers. Eleanor wasn't surprised when she got the call. Richard had found out. Lisa met her outside the courthouse, her expression grim. He's lawyered up. Of course he has. Eleanor crossed her arms. What's his defense? Lisa sighed. He's denying everything. Says your father willingly changed the will and cancelled the policy. Eleanor scoffed. And the forged documents? The recordings? Lisa smirked. That's the best part. He claims the recordings were doctored. That you're fabricating evidence. Eleanor shook her head. Typical. And Hayes? Lisa's expression darkened. We might have a problem there. Eleanor's stomach tightened. What kind of problem? Lisa hesitated. Hayes is missing. A chill ran down Eleanor's spine. Missing. Lisa nodded. Didn't show up for work. House was cleared out. Looks like he ran. Eleanor exhaled. Richard got to him. Probably. Lisa crossed her arms. But running only makes them look guiltier. The DA is moving forward with charges against Richard. Eleanor let out a breath. Good. Lisa gave her a careful look. That means things might escalate. Eleanor already knew that. That night, Eleanor double-checked the locks on her apartment. She knew Richard wouldn't take this quietly. And sure enough, by midnight, her instincts proved right. A crash outside. Eleanor's pulse spiked. She grabbed her phone and edged toward the window. A dark figure stood near her car, smashing the windshield with a crowbar. Her stomach twisted. Richard! She hit record on her phone and stepped onto the balcony. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Richard paused mid-swing, then turned, his face contorted with rage. You just don't know when to quit, do you? Eleanor raised her phone. Say that again, Richard. I'd love for the DA to hear. His eyes flickered with realization. You think you're smart? I think you're desperate. Her voice was steady. And I think you know this is the end. Richard dropped the crowbar, stepping closer. You don't have proof, Eleanor smirked. Then why are you here, Richard? Why are you so scared? His jaw clenched. Then, with a sneer, he backed away. This isn't over. She didn't flinch. Yes, it is. As he disappeared into the night, Eleanor let out a slow breath. Tomorrow, he would be arrested. And this time, there was no way out for him. Eleanor sat in the front row of the courtroom, her hands clasped tightly together. The past few months had led her to this moment. Every sleepless night, every piece of evidence, every sacrifice. This was it. Richard sat at the defense table, his usual smugness replaced by an anxious stiffness. His attorney whispered in his ear. But Richard wasn't listening. His gaze flicked toward Eleanor, searching for weakness. He wouldn't find any. The judge entered, and the courtroom fell silent. The prosecutor stood. Your Honor, we present irrefutable evidence that the defendant, Richard Simmons, manipulated a vulnerable elderly man, coerced him into changing his will, and fraudulently cancelled a life insurance policy worth over $1 million. Furthermore, we submit financial records showing a pattern of exploitation spanning years. The defense tried to push back, painting Richard as a devoted friend who had merely followed Mr. Mitchell's wishes. Then came the recordings. The courtroom listened as Richard's own voice filled the speakers. Once this is cancelled, we'll have everything arranged perfectly. The jury took less than 2 hours to deliberate. Guilty Eleanor exhaled slowly, her hands trembling. It was over. 2 weeks later, Eleanor walked into Lisa's office, this time with a sense of finality. The insurance company has agreed to reinstate the policy, Lisa said, sliding a document across the desk. The full payout, plus interest. Eleanor stared at the numbers. $1 million. It felt unreal. Lisa leaned back. What are you going to do with it? Eleanor thought for a long moment before smiling. Something that actually matters. 6 months later, Eleanor stood in front of the newly unveiled Mitchell Elder Advocacy Center. It wasn't just a name on a building. It was a promise. A promise that no one else would suffer the way her parents had. A promise that no other caregiver would be manipulated into financial ruin. Diane stood beside her, squeezing her hand. They'd be proud of you, Eleanor. Eleanor blinked back tears. I hope so. As she looked at the crowd, former victims, lawyers, volunteers, she felt something she hadn't in years. Peace. Richard was in prison. Hayes had been found, hiding in Arizona, and was facing his own trial. And the families they had stolen from? They were getting justice. Eleanor had come full circle. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was rebuilding. And for the first time in years, she was truly free. Have you ever experienced a betrayal like this? What would you have done in Margaret's situation? Comment 2 if you think Margaret was right to fight back, or 7 if you think she should have walked away. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more powerful tales of revenge and justice, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications.